Hi, welcome to IKEA.
Can you turn back time? I'm sending my baby to college.
We don't do time travel, but we can make sure you find affordable, stylish options they'll love.
Aww.
Also visit our website to see how verified college students with an IKEA family account can receive a one-time use 15% off coupon.
Double
Offer in September 30th, 2025. Valid ID required. Discount applied proportionally across items purchased as shown on receipt. See IKEA-USA.com/ready-for-college for complete terms.
So you're also neurodivergent, right? Can we talk about how our brains are wired a bit differently? Sometimes just a little, but other times it feels like we are operating on a whole other frequency. And let's be honest, it can be frustrating as hell when the world seems built for a standard issue brain. It's almost like showing up in a city full of stairs in a wheelchair. You're left thinking, did anyone consider that not everyone moves the same way? Well, if you've been hanging out with me for a while, you've probably picked up on the fact that I have ADHD. And you know what? I love it. Sure, there are struggles, plenty of them, but I've learned to manage them, or at least stay flexible when my brain decides to throw a chaotic dance party. But there are times when I absolutely adore my brain. Whenever I've caught myself playing the comparison game, I'd ask myself, sure, that person looks like they have it all together. They're beautiful, they're smart, they're popular. But would I really swap my brain for theirs? And the answer has always been a resounding nope. But I'll let you in on a little secret. I haven't always felt this way. There was a short time, especially in those first few years of adulthood, where you're suddenly in charge of your own schedule and structure. There were moments when I genuinely wondered if I'd ever become a responsible adult who could do simple things like keep my home tidy, show up on time, or keep track of both shoes. Seriously, where do they go? I tried Adderall during that time, became absolutely obsessed for 10 years, refusing to see any of the downsides of it, and for me, there were a ton. And can I be real with you guys for a moment? Consider this one of those, let me show you the cracks in my highlight reel moments. You're going to hear in this episode my real thoughts on Adderall today. So spoiler alert, I hate Adderall. I spent 10 years worshiping it, and when I finally got off, I realized I hadn't truly been myself since I was on it. But guess what? The version of me that was still on the medication would have never admitted that. And truthfully, I don't think I saw it until I detoxed. Got over the weaning off hump, which was terrible, and then settled into my body again. I started to find joy in little things that I couldn't before. I found pockets of my own personality I forgot existed. And I live very holistically now overall, which is a lifestyle choice that's helped me in pretty much every area of my life, except maybe my finances, but including managing my ADHD. So Adderall just doesn't really fit my lifestyle anymore. But I also know that there's probably many people in my audience that love it, feels like it saved their life. So know that wherever you are, you're right where you need to be. Whether that means you're on it forever or the facade of Adderall is cracking and eventually you'll look back and feel like I did. So I just wanted to share that because as far as any of my opinions on episodes, just because I feel strongly for myself doesn't mean that I'm ever judging you or your choices. I fully know that we all live in completely different realities. And yeah, there's this big part of my ego that's like, there's absolutely no way this can be good for anyone. But my whole life's work is staying open-minded to the fact that I might never understand what other people are experiencing, and to be open to that and to accept it and love in the face of that. So whether you're on or off medication, I truly feel that no Western medicine plan should ever be without an accompanying lifestyle plan. We shouldn't just be relying on medication to fix the whole thing. We should be doing things alongside of it. And I will say that for me, the lifestyle choices have always made a bigger difference than anything else ever. And I think a big reason why is that they're empowering. You don't feel dependent on something for your survival. And so we're talking about a lot of those little lifestyle choices today. Our guests are Kim and Penn Holderness. You probably recognize them from their viral family cover songs, which are pretty amazing, besides 3 or 4 that came out during the global shutdown, but we'll leave those at the door. 3 key things we will learn are how to stay organized and motivated using a dopamine-driven method that is deceptively simple but incredibly effective. How to use mnemonic devices and micro deadlines to manage ADHD symptoms and boost your productivity. and a transformative approach to handling mistakes in relationships, which leads to more empathy and connection. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Let's be real about something. Workplace stress is not just part of the job anymore. 61% of people are dealing with stress levels that are way beyond normal, and it is not sustainable. I used to think that grinding through stress was some kind of badge of honor. Push harder, sleep less, ignore what your body was telling you. And it nearly broke me when I was working for startups. And look, maybe that voice in your head telling you to make a change is right. Maybe you do need to quit your job or completely flip your life. But whether you're making big moves or just trying to survive your current situation, you need tools to handle it well. And that's where therapy comes in. Modern therapy teaches you how to set boundaries without the guilt, how to trust your intuition instead of second-guessing yourself constantly, how to make better decisions from a place of clarity instead of chaos. And BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform with over 30,000 therapists. They've got a 4.9 rating from 1.7 million reviews because it actually works. You can talk to someone from anywhere, and you can switch therapists anytime if it's not the right fit. A vacation won't fix chronic stress, but the right support can help you navigate whatever comes next. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Unwind from work with BetterHelp. My listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/mindlove. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/mindlove. Can we talk about back to school chaos for a second? The kids are getting back into routines, everyone's schedules are crazy, and suddenly you're supposed to have dinner on the table every night like some kind of magician. But want to know what I figured out? Shopping, planning, and cooking food really can be simple and stress-free, which is why I love Hungry Root. Hungry Root takes the stress out of mealtime by filling your cart with personalized picks and planning your week of meals, getting smarter with every order. With over 15,000 recipes to choose from each week, many ready in just 15 minutes or less, it's a huge lifesaver on those busy weeknights. I personally love their smart cart technology. It learns what I actually like and then recommends groceries, recipes, and supplements tailored to my tastes and needs. Plus, I love the kids' snack section where I get these really easy snacks to just keep in the car or throw in our to-go bags or lunch boxes for those of you who need them. They screen out over 200 additives, including high fructose corn syrup and artificial sweeteners. They only source high-quality meat and seafood with no hormones or antibiotics, and they carry trusted brands like Oatly and Vital Farms. The time that I have gotten back has been incredible. Take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/mindlove and use code MINDLOVE. That's hungryroot.com/mindlove, code MINDLOVE to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/mindlove, code MINDLOVE.
The stuff that's easy for most people is hard for me. I accept that. I put that in my heart and in my head, and I say, for that reason, I'm not going to be ashamed when I have to work hard at doing this. Because I used to be like, oh, come on, man, I'm not going to try to listen. That's ridiculous. I went to college. Now, when my wife is talking, I put everything down. I put my phone down. I close my laptop, whatever screens are near me, and I look at her, and I am like, I'm going to listen the shit out of this conversation. I almost gamify it like I do everything else. Say, I'm going to get to the end of this and I'm going to comprehend it.
Turn up your frequency with Mind Love. Bite-sized brain hacks for seekers, dreamers, and doers. It's time to give your mind a little love with your host, Melissa Monti.
So what inspired your latest book after years of creating music videos, really, on the topic of ADHD?
Well, I've got it.
A big case of it.
We'll start with that. I've probably displayed symptoms of it since I was very young, but wasn't diagnosed until I was in college. Not to show my age, but in the 80s, it wasn't really something that doctors were looking for in children. And so wasn't diagnosed until I was a young adult. And it was interesting when we started putting out some of the videos on ADHD on our platform, we had a lot of kids responding saying, hey, thanks. This made me feel good and made me feel seen. And I realized, when I was a kid, I didn't have anything like this. I didn't have a knowledge of why my brain was working like that. And for that reason, I thought there was something like really weird and wrong with me. I felt some shame about, crying really easily, chewing on my shirt and leaving these like big ringlets, like saliva ringlets around it, not being able to finish conversations, not being able to keep a straight train of thought, losing friends for that reason. And kind of realized, okay, we're reaching these kids. They're laughing at us. Maybe, another way to make them feel seen is to do some like real research on this and explain to them, why they're like this and the fact that it's not necessarily a terrible thing. I've got it. I've been able to make it through life. I've been able to find a wife well above what I deserve.
True.
And so
Just kidding.
yeah, that was probably impetus number one. Impetus number two was, despite the fact that I got diagnosed with it, I just kind of managed it without getting any real systems in place until very recently, when Kim and I started running a business together and raising a family. And I did start, like, things started falling through the cracks. I was not ADHDing well over the last 10 years or so. And so it helped our marriage a lot to write this book. I'll put it that way.
I have ADHD too. And I was one of the lucky ones, though, where I hyper focused on school. And so I just really liked the competition of it. I liked to be the best in the class, and I really liked to learn. And so it wasn't until I had my first typical job that I was just doing for money that I really started to feel handicapped by it in a way. And so the next 10 years, like pretty much all of my 20s, were really, really difficult, because it went from feeling like I was failing at a job, then trying to do my own thing and feeling like I just wasn't the type of person that could follow through with something. So it took a lot to really rewrite those scripts. But I know one of the things you talk about now is that we're so focused on the downsides of ADHD, but there's actually a lot of unique strengths that come with, I call people without ADHD boring brains. And
Hey.
there's a lot of unique strengths to having a non-boring brain, a non-typical brain.
Yeah.
What are those?
As somebody with a boring brain, I can tell you, I'm kidding. I will tell you. So my son was also diagnosed with ADHD 2 years ago. He's 14 now, and he gave us permission. He's very proud of his brain that we can talk about it. We didn't write about it in the book, but we talk about it now. I see both my husband and son, the way they think and see the world is pretty fantastic. I mean, they are just outside the box, really creative people. They're going to have a solution to a problem that my brain can't really picture. And this is a research-based book that we wrote. And in the research we learned, there's actually been studies done that quizzed, they asked the neurotypical people, and then they asked ADHD people, describe what an alien fruit would look like. And they did several of these studies. And the neurotypical brain, they're like, oh, like an apple with stripes or a purple orange. And the ADHD brains, they had hammers and tongues and teeth and hair. I mean, it was just like universally pretty creative. So ADHD sucks. ADHD really, really sucks. Not taking that away, but there are so many benefits that I see just in my daily life out of these brains.
Yeah, my theory is the same thing that keeps me from being able to make it to the end of a conversation, which I want to work on. I want to get better at, right? The same thing that has me spacing out when I'm trying to read something that I don't really care about. That same part of my brain, the reason it's doing that, it is receiving everything from all walks of life and taking in so much. And that skill is the reason why I believe that I am creative, because creativity to me is just finding those things that are floating around near you. I know this sounds kind of hippie, but it is how most music for me and how most comedy and how everything comes to me. It's by just looking around and letting new and weird ideas set inside my brain. And so I guess what I'm saying is, if it weren't for that part of my brain that's a little flighty, I don't think I can do my job.
Yeah. I really thought that ADHD sucked pretty bad when I felt like I had to force myself into the typical ladder of success, just finding a job that I didn't care about. And so I know that you guys have created a life around things that you're passionate about and having fun. How has that changed the way that you relate to your ADHD?
I will. So it was interesting. We've done a lot of podcasts and webinars, and one time, even in the book, Penn wrote about how he thought about going to law school, and we were talking about it in a webinar, saying, "Oh my gosh, I can't imagine like being ADHD and being an attorney, how that reading." And then right away, we got lit up with, "I'm an ADHD contract lawyer. I find it fascinating." We heard from if it's of interest, like you were saying with school, you loved school and the game of school, so you can lock in and really like, focus on that. Ken has never, we talked about today, he's never had a job that somebody else had before him. Meaning down to like he was a waiter, but then he also made money as he would sing opera he would sing happy birthday to the patrons for extra tips. He was the guy they hired to like change the channels at a sports bar. He had to run around. Like every job he's had when he was hired at ESPN, he was like they're like, let's do like a sports essayist, because he did not and continues not to fit into a mold that works for other people. Down to like we do this like lovely internet thing. We love it. We're very happy on the internet, but he gets approached for TV stuff all the time. And so when these openings happen, they're like, that's not quite it. Like he's not going to fit. So in a corporate job in which he had to work in a cubicle, his ADHD symptoms would seem really extreme. But in the work in which we do, I mean, we shot 3 videos today before we sat with you, and we changed gears 3 times. And now we're sitting, this is the perfect job for an ADHD brain. So his symptoms don't seem really exacerbated.
Yeah.
That's a really long way to say that. Sorry.
No, that's perfect. You said it better than I would. The only thing I would add is that I'll just collapse in about an hour and I'll need to just stare at a TV.
Thank you for saying that. I don't think I've identified that part of my
collapse, yeah.
energy, but I definitely feel that. And I'm like, I guess I just need self-care. Didn't necessarily connect it to an ADHD thing. But see, to me and my view of the world, that makes ADHD seem pretty magical. So many people settle for lives that are mundane, that they're not truly passionate about because they feel like they have to, because everyone around them is. And an ADHD brain forces you not to do that. And yes, it makes you feel like you're failing at the same time or that you can't keep up. But if you're really just listening to those internal cues of where you're being guided, it's kind of a pretty good internal GPS.
It is. And it's so interesting. It's been siloed into this neurodevelopmental disorder that makes it hard for you to pay attention, right? The more people study it, the more they realize several things. One of which, ADHD gets along with a lot of other stuff, right? It gets along with autism. It gets along with OCD and depression. It gets along with anxiety.
Yeah, so typically
like
there's a lot of people diagnosed with ADHD and anxiety, or autism and ADHD.
Right.
Yeah.
Which to me, I keep hearing that, and there's part of me that's like, okay, is this a disorder, or is this just a certain facet of a brain that has been classified as a disorder because the symptoms are something that people really don't want to deal with, like fidgeting or acting hyperactive in class when you're a kid, because the other side, as you said, does exist. And children who get diagnosed with it, even adults, Melissa, sometimes they feel a ton of shame because the way it's described is entirely negative when doctors give you that diagnosis, or used to be. That used to be the case.
But I do think that first of all, we feel very incredibly privileged to be doing this. And I get it that it's like hard to just start a podcast, and it's hard to just, start an Instagram page. It's taken a lot of work, and I do feel very privileged. But I do think we have heard from so many people. At one of our book signings, there's a man, he works in landscaping, and he would do those big, beautiful installations of you put all the shrubs in and the flowers, like those whole big landscaping projects. And he couldn't take being at one house for several days in a row. So he changed his whole business. And now he just does like the fertilizing and seeding, because you can get in and out in 10 minutes. And he's like, I'll do 30 houses in a day. And he's like gamifying it. And he's expanded his business and he's hired people because he's like, that was not good for my ADHD. This is much better. So I do think like listening, even, I mean, I have technically, I mean, I guess you wouldn't call me neurotypical because I have anxiety and OCD, but I couldn't, even in the news job I had, I could not go to work. I was like, this is terrible. This is awful. I hate it. I couldn't do it anymore. So like, that's why we're doing this. So I think everybody, ADHD especially, has like that sort of internal nudging about where your symptoms aren't going to be as exacerbated. Like crying on the bathroom floor every day before going to work, like that's a problem. So you need to create something. Like I was like, I need to create something else that's not this. So
Yeah.
that was an answer for that.
I love long answers. This is a podcast.
Yeah, sure.
My cousin was a 911 dispatcher for like 20 years. And she's turned a whole new leaf. Last year, she finally quit her job because she started listening to those inner nudges. And she was just like, this is miserable. I am the person at the other end of everybody's worst day. You're never calling 911 in a good mood, you know? And so she was actually experiencing physical illness. And a holistic coach told her that one of the best things she could do would be to quit her job and find something new. And she had a situation where she could, thankfully, and her whole life improved on so many levels, depressive symptoms, physical health symptoms. So I'm all for listening to those internal nudges. That's a big part of what this podcast is about. But I'm curious, when you are following that passion, what does that look like for you? How do you just identify like, where was the last time I hyper-focused? or tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's got to be something that you care about, right? Like Kim said before, the component of ADHD that is both its best and worst issue is the ability to become fixated on something, right? And it's called they call it hyperfocus, I think, when you're doing something well. They call it fixating when you're doing something
when maybe you shouldn't be paying attention to it that much.
Counterproductive. Both of those things happen to me when it's something that I care about or that gives me like a little bit of a dopamine hit. So I'm in trouble when it's like I'm playing solitaire on my computer for 2 hours and forget where I am because it's giving me those little mini dopamine hits. But when it's something on the productive side, it's still sort of the same thing. So for me, my first job was waiting tables, which I loved because there were deadlines all around me. And being able to like beat the buzzer, if you will, that's sort of my home base. So you've got it like, okay, you've got 5 tables. You really think I'm going to be able to juggle all these tables and get them all out the door at the same time and make sure their food's there on time? I don't make it happen. My brain just naturally gamifies that, right? Like to be able to get to all of these places. My next job was in local television. We had to get this story out as quickly as possible so that you could make it onto the live news and be the first person to tell that story, or to cut that highlight for a sporting event, or to rush from wherever you are back to the station, edit it together, flow on a tie, get out and say something live where it looks like you've been there all along, but you're really racing against the clock the entire time. So for me, it's always been about finding those places where I could try to make a deadline and even better, like an impossible deadline, a deadline that someone else can't do as well as me. And then moving into this line of work, it's the same, except the deadline is just as soon as you darn well can. There's not an 11 o'clock deadline or a TV show that comes on in 2 weeks. As soon as something's good, you put it out there instantly and see what the world thinks.
Oh yeah. I have a hard time when I create something good.
Yeah.
I can't create like a 30-day Instagram strategy. I just can't because I'll create 5 videos at once and be like, I'm going to post all these today. Like I cannot wait.
Now. I know. Well, we are the same way. And so we have now, I think one of the reasons why we can do what we do is we have people that work with us, Anne Marie and Sam, who work on our team. They help like schedule things. And drives, like they'll have a content calendar. We only usually go a week out with our calendar, but we will shoot something, Penn and I, and we're like, let's put this out right now. And it just blows up the entire calendar. And they're like, ugh, but I want to put it out right now.
Honestly, the spontaneous ones, if you go back and look, they perform better.
I mean, sometimes, yeah. But yeah, anyway, but I get that.
On average,
yeah.
I would say like the times, when we woke up and we're like, let's do something about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. Well, that just happened. How fast can we get this out there? So being quick and meeting those deadlines and being responsive in the social media world can be very rewarding. I mean, like rewarding you with views and clicks and everything else, because the more you can get to, the closer you can get to being relevant, usually the better something does.
You mentioned something earlier about, is it a diagnosis or is it just a different spectrum of brains?
Yeah.
And I've talked about this before. I 100% believe it's just a different spectrum of brains. I'm going to put on a little tinfoil hat here. But there was a very clear time in the early 1900s where the school system was created to create workers and then to make everyone else feel like they're failing. Like I really see so much of the basic school system, especially in certain areas, like a toddler should not be sitting in a toddler boy, at least my toddler boy, is not sitting in circle time. Like if I send him to preschool right now, they'd probably be like, okay, he won't sit down. This is a problem. And I'd be like, he's got the perfect energy level for a 3-year-old boy. But including school, you're sitting there at a desk. You have to focus on things, memorize everything. Most of it is memorization based rather than using your creative side. And what if all these ADHD brains are actually overperforming, just not in the jobs and the roles that they're trying to put us in? So I feel like I will, to my grave, be trying to destigmatize ADHD. I just do not believe it's a downfall. It can be if you're trying to fit yourself into a box. But if you have the vision, the privilege, I hate to say, but it's true.
It is.
To be able to lean into that and create something new, just like take it as a sign.
Yeah, I know. And so there's so many researchers we used and contacted, and they gave us their time for this book. And Dr. Emily King is one of them. And her, just like the hill she will die on is schools, is training, creating an environment for neurodiverse children, ADHD especially, in schools. And I am so encouraged of the number of teachers who have reached out to us, and that and the amount of teachers and school boards Dr. Emily King is working with, because you're right. I mean, my kid, there was one time in preschool, the teacher called us and they're like, you're just going to have to come get him. It's like he's taken 3 shots of espresso. And, I was like, he's 4. Like, this is like, I don't know what you want me to do here. But of course we went and picked him up and he was just being like his goofy self. But I remember, don't you remember that day?
Yeah.
We were like, yeah, I think they wanted him to sit at a desk or sit in circle time. And he did. I mean, he's a good boy, but like there was one day it just wasn't happening. So we had to go get him. So, I mean, maybe we're just putting this structure on our kids. Yeah, it's just so much.
We've switched our diets back to the paleo ages. If we switched our method of productivity back to the paleo ages and got rid of schools and went back to hunting and gathering, we were actually, according to every geneticist that you talk to, like people with ADHD were awesome, like really, really good at stuff.
We needed you guys out there
before offices and schools took shape, because it's in our DNA. And like the fact that it's our primal instincts are telling us, no, don't sit and look at this person talking, go explore, find out about the world, look out for saber-toothed tigers. Like we had the energy, we were the best. And then it's not our fault, but like when it came time to organize these systems, we just didn't do it.
I know.
Someone else did it.
And I don't know what the answer is, because we need school, or at least our family needs school. We're not a homeschooling family. We don't have that in us, but like our kids need school and they need jobs. So like if the world could if we could meet in the middle, if the world can somehow just recognize the gift of some neurodiversity, I think we could figure, and it would be good for all kids. It would be good for all kids.
I know it's hard. I have so much hope because so many people are noticing this and it's coming out. And then my skeptical side comes out and it's like, well, the people that created the school system are the same exact people that own the pharmaceutical industries, that own 98% of the world's wealth. And so it's not really in their best interest to allow something too radical to happen.
However, if I can just jump in there.
Yes, please give me some hope here.
If you're a boss, or if you are the principal of a school who's trying to create a place that has the most like Fortune 500 people to come out of that institution, you would be smart to cultivate, nourish, and help grow the minds of neurodiverse people, because they are the ones, if you look at it like statistically, who are creating new things. And if you create something new, that's what a Fortune 500 company is, right? Like people with ADHD and neurodiversity may not have a great track record in listening to the American Revolution as dictated by a teacher, which is important. Those things are important. But they do, if you look at them, they have a track record of being innovators. Einstein, Thomas Edison, like the innovators are people who have this type of brain. And so if you run a school or an office, you should be looking out for that and finding ways to make the most of it instead of ways to restrict it.
Yes. I had a job once where I was just always about being resourceful and trying to get around the structure. And so in college, I made sure I went to Disabled Student Services, got priority registration. It was amazing. I also could not be graded on attendance. I was allowed to leave a digital recording device there, which I never once did because I was going to listen to it. Yeah. There's all sorts of things. You just have to understand like what privileges are available for the ADHD brain. These are all available. You just have to go actually talk to them about it. And so priority registration was key because so often classes would all be taken up, but the reasoning is because ADHD brains work better within certain time windows. And so they wanted to allow us to get the classes where our brains were working well. Well, I remembered this information, and in any corporate job that I had afterwards, this did not make me a popular employee. However, I went to HR and I got a corner office when everyone else was in a cubicle. I got my schedule shifted to where I didn't have to come in until 10. But there's a lot of benefits for the people. And I only say this because so often we're focusing on all these downsides, but there's upsides not only in just the way the brain works, like the creativity and things like that we're talking to, but there are already some things in place that probably other beautiful ADHD brains fought for our rights for.
Yeah,
if you just knew, you could ask for.
That is sad. I'm just taking notes as like my son eventually will go to college at one point. Yeah, it is true because we worked with his school in middle school. He just finished 8th grade to get his science and math class because he loves those classes, but they were at the end of his day in 7th grade and it was a disaster. So they were at the beginning of his day. And now that he's going to transition to high school, the folks, we have to just do that whole paperwork thing again. And they're like, I don't know if we could do that. So we're just kind of crossing our fingers. I'm just going to have to stay persistent on that.
Yes. Just Google something. ChatGPT can probably help you there. What are the best resources for ADHD rights in colleges? You'll get a whole list of things.
Love that.
But one of the things that seems to be a common story of the ADHD brain is that it's really hard for us, even though our brains don't fit in the molds to go to a job, it's really hard for us to create our own deadlines or actually follow through with them, like have that sort of executive function to be able to create our own structure. I think that was the hardest part for me in my 20s. What are some of the things that have really worked for you besides having a team that keeps you accountable?
Yeah. You can't just do that. I wish that would be great. But so for me, I do have a lot of systems in place, and I'm going to tell you what they are, and then I'm going to tell you how I'm able to do them. So like I set a timer every time I turn on a stove because I'm going to burn the house down, right? Like I'll forget to turn the stove off. I have a song to make sure that I sing in my head to make sure I've got my glasses, my wallet, my keys, and my phone. So these are the I pee sitting down.
You sing the song because I think I need it.
Oh, it's glasses, wallet, keys, and phone. Keys and phone. Glasses, wallet, keys, and phone. Keys and phone. Make sure you have them all before you go. Glasses, wallet, keys, and phone. Keys and phone. Right. So that's
a bop.
These are like little things to get me through the day. I pee sitting down when I can, especially at night, so I don't forget to leave the toilet seat up and Kim doesn't like have a splashdown in the middle of the night. So I have all these those are little systems to keep from breaking down executive functioning wise during the day. When it comes to work, what has worked for me, and again, ADHD, we're like snowflakes, like there's no two alike, but the micro deadlines that I set for myself have been the most important thing, especially when writing this book. Instead of saying, I'm going to write this chapter in the next week, that is my brain short circuits when it hears that. I'm going to write a real kick-ass paragraph in the next 10 minutes, and then I'm going to move on to the next one. I keep my deadlines short and fairly intense. And also it gives me a chance to surpass them and be like, let's go. So for me, that system has worked extremely well. I do a lot of the stuff also that you were talking about, which is sort of securing a safe perimeter, having an office that's on a different floor from everyone else.
We're like in the attic right now.
In the attic. And then kind of tailoring my environment to where my focus is going to be the most effective. And for me, it's not a lot of windows. As much as I love light and windows when I'm working, I shouldn't have windows.
Computer faces a wall. Yeah.
My phone is nowhere near me when I'm doing work.
To a fault. Can I also say yesterday, he was like, oh, I have this idea for a song. I'm like, well, we have a meeting in 3 minutes. He's like, I got it. And then
I missed the meeting.
He missed the meeting.
I missed the meeting.
Yeah.
So I'm a person who can't have more than one tab open while he's working on his desktop, or I'll want to know what's in the other tab. So I'm a one tab at a time kind of guy. Again, these are all I know. I see. What's that look?
I don't understand how it's possible. I am probably a one tab at a time person that's never once been able to figure out how to make that work. So instead I'm 1,000 tab at a time.
Right.
Well, I think also this is when ADHD in men and women can be so different that we've learned. First of all, I think it's the coolest thing ever that you've got a diagnosis. It sounds like pretty early and you were able to learn how to deal with it, because so many women are undiagnosed or just underdiagnosed. Same with minorities, like people of color are underdiagnosed. Also really, really smart people, highly intelligent people, because they can white knuckle it through it. But I think as a woman, I feel like there's this sort of expectation that you're handling. You have to have 20 tabs open because you have to have like the Sign Up Genius and email open and school stuff is happening, whatever. Like, I think there's this expectation. I think Penn has a good support staff around him, so we can only have the one tab open.
Well, I only have one tab open, but I do have a paper list in front of me every day. And it's got a little, the most important part about the list, right, if you're an ADHD person, is the little box, because you check the box and it's like a little dopamine hit. Feels nice. Feels nice to check that box.
It does. I always have 1,000 tabs open. I closed 900 of them right before this call, but there's a few windows I haven't found behind other windows. Well, what has been helpful for me. So I'm the kind of person that like overaccumulates everything, and then I don't know what to do with it. It's too much to process. And so I have to just like get rid of it all. My husband's opposite. He will have hard drives full of all the things. He's like, I got a new computer. I need to make sure this one's backed up. And I'm like, that computer's done. I'm starting fresh with this one.
It's dead to me.
I've got my Dropbox folders that will automatically do stuff, but anything that's just in that downloads folder, I want nothing to do with it. And so I used this Chrome extension called OneTab for a long time, but I found at the end of the day, I'm like, do I click that? And it all, like, it would give me anxiety because you just click the button and it basically puts all of your tabs into a links list. It's really nice. I used it for years, but I found I would have anxiety. So I'm like, I'll just exit out. I don't know why. I didn't want to save it in the list. Now I use a new one called Schema with a K, and it does that for me automatically. So it doesn't use my memory. And so it'll just be like, well, this hasn't been touched for 30 minutes. And it'll just put it in a link list and close the tab. But I swear to God, for ADHD people, look that up. I have a free version. I just found it like a month ago. It's been wildly helpful.
Oh, what a good hack. I love that. But
you also mentioned I didn't officially get diagnosed when I was young. Almost every teacher would have moments of being like, yeah, you clearly have ADHD, but you're excelling in school, so this is fine. Like I said, it wasn't until I went to a doctor in college, and then they prescribed me something, and then I had I had about 9 years where I thought it was amazing, but then I had to look back and be honest with myself that it was only really amazing for me the first year. And then the next 9 It was like this horrible crutch that, for me, stole my soul. So I'm curious.
Are you talking about 9 years of medication?
I was on medication from age 20 until 29. And then I finally decided to start weaning off of it, mostly because I wanted to move to Croatia and it's not allowed in Croatia. And I was like, how am I going to live without it? Yeah. Yeah. And so I personally hate the medication. I'm very glad I wasn't diagnosed when I was young, because I don't see how a 5-year-old could be on a medication like that for so many years and ever return to normalcy without it. I'm curious on your feelings about that.
Well, I'll tell you, but will you tell me what you meant when you said that you felt like it stole your soul?
Yeah. So, I had a lot of people mention things in my relationships with them that I refused to see, but there was a come down period. I was on Adderall for a lot of years. Then I moved to Vyvanse to kind of wean myself off. And then I finally got off. My brain was going too fast that I would like snap at people. I'd be like, can you tell the story faster? And my mom noticed it the most. And she's just like, I feel like you need to get off of this. This is not you. And I refused to see it. It was also kind of wrapped up into an eating disorder I had, because it decreased my appetite. And so I was so obsessed with this. I felt like I needed it to be me. But then when I finally decided to get off of it because I wanted to move out of the country, which I never did, I found this whole layer of my personality that I didn't realize was gone until I got out of it. And I could enjoy moments more. I was silly again. Whereas before it was like I was just always in this sort of hyper-focused and no one could keep up with me phase. And then between about 3 and 5 p.m., I was like kind of a zombie, but I was on a very high dosage for my size. So that could have been it. But I'm just not a fan. I know other people have other experiences with it. People like Mel Robbins, who are incredibly successful. She's done a video where she's on it. So that was just my personal experience. But I'm also a very holistically minded person who tries to use medication as a very last resort. So I like to ask other people that I know might have a different point of view, because I know I can be very biased in mine.
Well, so the stance in the book is that medicine is the majority of people who take ADHD medicine, it helps them long term. They react positively to it long term. You and I are in the minority. I took it for 1 year and it got me through college and I graduated. And along the way, I realized a couple of things. I was getting better at times at listening to others. I did have it, as much as it was supposed to regulate me, the fact that it wasn't always in my system when it went away. Like first of all, it's so funny you said the eating thing. I don't need to lose weight, but I could not keep weight on when I was taking this medicine. And so the doctors were like, just take a couple, don't do it on the weekends. So on the weekends, I would eat like 12 pizzas just to get the calories back in. But I never felt, because of that, I never felt settled one way or the other. And the other thing that I firmly believe, I was a songwriter and I was in a band up until that year. And I was a pretty good musician. And I lost the ability to write songs, to write music when I was on the medication. And I'm sure there are other people who that doesn't happen to. Like, people write songs in different ways. But whatever part of my brain that was receiving this randomness in the universe that I was able to turn into something that, let's be honest, most songs are really random. The ability to do that was lost. And it made me sad. And so when I took myself off of it, I did make a little pledge to myself, like, okay, I've just got to be more considerate of other people and not be stuck in my own brain all the time, and try to listen to them when they're talking, try to let them finish their sentences. And just like, I'm leaving college now, like, dude, let's just man up and try not to be that guy. And let's see where this brain takes you.
But I will say we've talked with doctors, and they don't, that once we've talked to, they prescribe now, you have to partner the medication with behavioral modifications, because the medication itself, and it sounded like you needed to like make some adjustments there. Yeah, it's going to help. Maybe it's going to help you in work or make you get through school. But like that whole emotional regulation piece, like that is not going to really treat how you're treating your friends. So like those behavioral modifications need to happen too. But yeah, it does help a lot of people. And then the same amount of people, it seems, say, or percentage of people say
Yeah.
change their personality.
But what Kim's saying is for everyone, whether it works or it doesn't, like putting those systems in place, like we've been talking about, that needs to be prescribed by everyone. It doesn't really normally get prescribed by psychiatrists because they work specifically in medicine. So there's two schools of thoughts, right? There's the doctors who prescribe medicine and the doctors who do therapy, and try to work with you, and coaches and all those types of people. And a lot of times it's like two different offices you have to go to.
Yeah, I had to do that. What bothers me is that there are incentive programs for prescribing everything. And so I have a hard time trusting the people who are prescribing it that are also getting paid to prescribe things. I have a hard time trusting, because if you would have asked me on year 9 how I felt about Adderall, it would have been completely different than when I trusted myself to get off of it. I would have said it was the best thing ever. I'm never getting off of it. And when I finally got off of it, I'm like, oh my God, I refuse to let myself see the downsides. And so with anything addictive, I mean, the same thing happened with alcohol or people who get off alcohol. When they're on it, they love it. And then when they get off of it, they're like, okay, this and this and this, my usage wasn't working there. And so it's just something that I feel like people really need to tune in. And instead of always asking, well, it should be helpful to most people, and it does that, like, this is what the stats say, just like, how do I actually feel? What's lost? What do I need? And with anything that we're doing, any sort of medication, there should always be a coupling of behavior modification. That's where real change happens. If you actually want to change your life, you've got to put in a little bit of effort to do that. And so I'm curious, though, what have been some of the biggest behavior modifications that you've done, especially being in a relationship with somebody who doesn't have the same brain working as you do?
Well, I have to accept, I think the reason I'm able to do all these modifications is because I did the research and learned what's going on in my brain. Like my brain, I'm a one tab brain. Things that I'm looking at are an on off switch. And if I go somewhere else, whatever the first thing was that I was focusing on has left my working memory. But I go somewhere else, like if I pay attention to something else, that last thing is gone. I got to go actively back and find it, including like when I'm listening to my wife and she's telling me a story. So once I learned that about my brain, I realized, okay, so the stuff that's easy for most people is hard for me. I accept that. I put that in my heart and in my head. And I say, for that reason, I'm not going to be ashamed when I have to work hard at doing this. Because I used to be like, oh, come on, man, I'm not going to like try to listen. It's ridiculous. I went to college. Now, when my wife is talking, I put everything down. I put my phone down. I close my laptop, whatever screens are near me, and I look at her and I am like, I'm going to listen the shit out of this conversation. Like I almost gamify it like I do everything else. Say, I'm going to get to the end of this and I'm going to comprehend it. And so honestly, the biggest behavioral modification that I made, it happens with that. It happens when I'm trying to do the dishes. It happens when she's like, hey, can you close the house down? And it means that I've got to lock the doors, make sure the dog pees, get all the lights out, make sure the garage door is not open. All things that I've failed at miserably for a long time. Now that I know that these easy things are hard for me, I pretend like I'm taking the SAT when I'm doing these things. Like I tell myself like, Penn, you can do this. And so for me, it's been this like self-realization that it's okay that this is going to be hard. And what that does is it wires my brain into saying, oh, this is challenging for you. And remember, like we're good at things that are challenging for us. Kind of trippy, right? Does that make sense to you?
It does. And I'm just being reminded of something I was just sharing with somebody the other day. And it's just this idea of, like you said, where people forget how to learn, I think, at an older age, and they forget that things are going to be hard. And so we have this natural resistance of like, I don't want to do this, or things. We end up building up the anticipation for that even more so. But when I am going to do something, I really just expect discomfort. So this is what I was coaching somebody through. I'm like, expect discomfort when you're trying something new. Not that like, oh no, there's all these techie things that I've never done before, blah, blah. Well, guess what? It's uncomfortable the first time. The second time, you know what you're doing, at least a little bit more. It gets less uncomfortable every single time that you do this. And so whether you have a normal / kind of boring brain. Sorry, this is just we're really catering towards the ADHD. So. But whether you have a regular brain. I refuse to say neurotypical because I just don't think anything's typical.
It's typical. Nobody's
There's a
typical.
whole spectrum of beauty, in my opinion. But whether you have whatever type of brain that you have, it's just a different kind of uncomfortable and a different story that we're attaching to it. Is it because my brain's not working, or is it because you're just trying something brand new? You're 39 years old and you've never logged into ChatGPT before. Like, which one is it? It's all going to look like jargon or feel like discomfort until you rewire some neural pathways to be able to flow into it a little bit more. So yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. I was just connecting this other thing that I had said the other day.
Beautiful. Well, and by the way, Kim is, I would not call her neurotypical anyway. Like we should probably.
No, she doesn't.
Right. With your videos, there's no way you're neurotypical. But like I said, I don't think anything's neurotypical. What is it's just this one slice of the spectrum that we're going to call normal.
Why even shoot for that? Why even shoot for that?
I've never wanted to be normal in my life.
Exactly.
I'm curious too. We talked about the systems that you put into place. But what about Kim? Because I know that it can be really frustrating to be with somebody, and I'm speaking for my husband over here. A lot of times we just make a joke out of it. Like we have a phrase, the shoe is on the shelf, because one time I actually couldn't find my shoe and it was on the bookshelf. And it's like so my hand just opened up when I was walking by here. And so things like that happen all the time. Keys in the freezer, like things that you'd think is a joke for online, but it actually happens to us. How have you learned to navigate it? Either things that you tell yourself, systems that you put in place to have more compassion, to have a well-flowing household?
Mm-hmm. Well, I will say I used to take it very personally when I would find, the milk was in the pantry and the keys were in the freezer. And then all of a sudden his pants were in front of the refrigerator. I'm like, what is happening? So I used to take it very personally. How could you not see this? Like, how could the shoe end up on the shelf? I will say, so we started doing research for this book 5 years ago. And one of the things we learned, was about ADHD and working memory. So what happened with your shoe in the shelf was you probably took off a shoe and then you saw something else. Like you saw, you were hungry, you saw the refrigerator. So it exited your working memory that you put a shoe there. You have no memory of it. Zero, right? Zero. And then you went on to probably get a snack, which was very important. So when I learned that, when my son got diagnosed, I could see the things like he has to wear shoes to school every single day. It's kind of just a basic thing. But there were so many days I was having to remind him and my husband.
Shoes are stupid.
He now has car shoes because he went somewhere without shoes recently, my husband, and he had to get out of the car. So now he has car shoes but that in my brain, it is like, I see, oh, look, it's really cloudy, I should bring an umbrella. Their brains don't even connect, clouds equal rain, may need an umbrella. Like that doesn't even happen. So therefore, all that to say is it allows me to offer grace. And it was taught to us, Dr. Emily King, who said, offer connection, not correction. And that was very, very, very hard for me because I am a recovering perfectionist. And to me, this stuff is so easy. So when he left the stove on with the bacon grease and left the house and the fire alarm was going off, and he felt a lot of shame. He was very embarrassed. He had tears in his eyes. So me piling on in that moment was not going to be helpful. So what I offered him, I'm like, wow, that must have been really scary. This is a lot. This is a lot right now, huh? And he could the kind of temperature, literal and emotional, kind of lowered. And then later is when, we allow the moment to pass. He'd say, okay, babe. So that was a working memory situation. So what do you think we should do when he's going to be cooking breakfast? And that's the timer on his phone goes on anytime he's cooking anything. So I now I think I offer a lot more grace because I understand it more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's this, like, I just thought of this in my head, and this is not in my book, and I've never said this out loud, but I'm going to try this. Okay. There's two cycles of us screwing up and then our loved ones dealing with us. There's a good cycle and a bad cycle. I think the cycle that most people are in and that I was in for a long time is the bad cycle. You screw up. Here's the circle. I'm going to make a circle like this. You screw up. Your wife is, or your spouse is like, I can't believe you did that. You feel awful shame. You're not really getting along too well. Okay, right around here, like, okay, I'm forgiving you. I'm sorry. Okay, fine. Everything's fine again. You screw up again. And it just goes around and around and around. And I think to reverse the cycle, what Kim does is you screw up. Kim says, oh man, that must be really hard. Instead of going into this shame segment of the circle, you at that point, I don't know why, but she says that to me and it makes me want to say, I'm going to work my ass off to make sure that this never happens again. I put a system in place, right? I'm going to screw up again, but when I do, offering grace, more work on this system. So there's the cycle where shame is the prime. Shame and resentment are the two prime emotions. And then there's the cycle that starts with the loved one, right? Showing some empathy that changes you from shame to determination to get better.
But I will also say I'm not one that's going to we were going on a trip to Florida. It was just the weekend. We had carry-ons. He left his carry-on in the boarding area he just got on the plane and left it. So we were all kind of sitting on different areas of the plane because we booked last minute. I get off the plane from the back and he's like, hey babe, forgot my suitcase in Raleigh. I was like, oh, wow, that sucks. The kids and I are going to go to the hotel and get our vacation started. I'm so sorry that happened, babe. I'll meet you at the hotel. Like, I'm not going to sit there and shop for him. I'm not going to I'll be supportive. I'll offer grace in that way, but I'm not going to, it's an explanation, not an excuse.
Yeah. I'm not saying you're coddling me when you accept it. I'm saying that just showing the slightest amount of empathy makes the people who have the shame, it makes us want to work harder. Yeah. Instead of want to sit there and feel crappy about themselves.
And I will also say, because I have some, I have my moments, but I've had some anxiety and panic attacks in my life. And I think I can offer him grace because he offers me grace, because on those days where I'm like, hey babe, I have no idea. I was in the grocery store and for some reason spaghetti sauces overwhelmed me. I left my cart in the middle of the aisle. I'm coming home right now. We have no groceries. And he's like, I got it. You get in bed. I got it. And so he steps up in a way that's like so supportive and non-judgmental. So I kind of want to do the same for him.
That's such a good point. And I think that's a good point for any relationship, regardless of what either person is struggling with, because we all come with our own shadows. And I think we all just really want to be seen. And we're so used to hiding those shadows. And so we never feel loved fully and completely for who we are, because we feel like if we showed this part of ourselves, we wouldn't be. And so there's this point in a relationship where you either start to have too many cracks or you figure out ways to fill those cracks together. It's like, okay, I see more of you than I saw on year 2. Or thank you for showing me this. And you're either going to shame the person and they're going to go back into hiding, and it's just not a good recipe for a relationship. Or you're like, no, it's safe to show me those parts of you. And we're here to create a new version of whole. I'm not the kind of person who believes you're incomplete without a partner, but there is something to be said about really figuring out, and you do this in a team, whether it's your relationship or a work team. It's what are each person's strengths and what are the things we need to either outsource or rely on each other for? And that happens a lot in our relationship. I think maybe my husband has gone the coddling bit a little bit more. I'm thinking of in April, I went on a mommy and me retreat. Thank God this mommy and me retreat was only 1 hour away. But I brought my toddler and I forgot my suitcase at home. And my husband but very graciously drove the suitcase to me an hour and a half away with our infant. And we have to drive down a windy mountain. The infant threw up mid-drive. We had to take him out, rechange him. It's after the infant's bedtime. This whole thing. We actually dropped this off. And not only that, day 2, Everyone fell asleep. I decided to make myself some Four Sigmatic hot cocoa, who's not a sponsor, but I just really love that brand. And I fell asleep or got distracted when it was on the stove. And thank God I had, like, I don't know, the grace of God. I zipped up like an hour later. I ruined the pan. I had to hide the pan because I didn't want to tell anyone else at this retreat that I almost killed everyone. It was horrible. But I actually had this moment of like, and I think this is possible no matter how wild your brain can get. I sat there and I did a meditation, and the whole time it was just like, Melissa, you need to get your shit together. People are relying on you. You put people in danger. You put people out. like I get that your brain is dealing with a toddler all week, and so it was a whole different environment for me. No help or anything, but the next like 4 days were like my most productive days, and it was because I gave myself that little pep talk, and I realized that the stakes were high.
Yes.
Also, I love that you said you meditated, because I do believe that ADHDers meditate a lot differently from other people, and yours sounded a little different. That's not like a normal meditation that I would hear, but I'm here for it.
I have to mix up the meditations because I need things to keep me stimulated. So I'm always going back and forth. Am I going to do a mantra meditation? Like, what do I need right now? My brain is too wild to just focus on my breath. So let's do a visualization today. And I'm going to let my wildest dreams fly forward. You know what? Today I need to figure out where to find that calm baseline. So I'm going to do the mantra meditation, or I'm going to listen to a guided one versus music. So I'm always kind of tapping in and thinking like, what can I handle that's not going to make me feel like a failure, and that's going to give me a little bit of what I need at this moment. Do you meditate?
I've tried. I try to meditate. To me, it ends up just being like, I want someone who's got like a super relaxing voice that I can space out and like ASMR to. And that's not meditating.
Oh, ASMR. That is kind of a meditation.
Yeah, I don't know.
He does. I mean, there are different things that he like that are meditative
Sure.
to him. Like that it can kind of, his brain can sort of disconnect.
I sit outside at my porch and just stare out like I'm probably going to look like in 30 years when I'm in the old folks home.
30 years, babe. I hope
maybe
we have
20. I don't know. Not long. Yeah.
no 30. I feel like I want a little more time before I put you in the home.
That's true. And I'd like more time too. Anyway, so I don't traditionally meditate. I haven't like it to me. It just hasn't stuck. It doesn't mean I'm not open to it.
I tried for years before it started to stick. And I will say the thing that onboarded me was the 10% Happier app. And it's because what it allowed me to do is they signal at 1 minute, and the whole concept is like, even 1 minute helps.
Yeah.
And so if you make it to this 1 minute, you're successful. You can leave, or we'll queue you at 5 and then we'll queue you at 10. And there was something about that really worked, because it's about that like feeling like a failure versus not. And I found that I could always make it to 1 minute, and I never wanted to leave at that 1 minute mark. I think I did once the first week, but then I was like, I could make it to 5. And it feels a lot different now than when I started. Like I said, the first few years, it was hard to even make it a habit. And then after that, the 1 minute sort of mind hack, I started to move on to other things like Insight Timer, which is still one of my favorites. Right now I'm trying Balance, because they have a really soothing voice with no music, and I'm trying to get my brain unaddicted to the music side, because I really love a good music meditation. But I'm like, I also want to be able to just sit here and not have anything playing. And even though there's still something playing, there'll be long pauses and things like that. So I'm always just like looking for a new way to spice it up. And thankfully there's like 100 meditation apps now. So it's never really gets boring. I would encourage you to try, because I feel like that is the number one thing that has changed my relationship with myself.
I've suggested this, but now that you've suggested it, maybe he'll be down for it.
Every time someone suggests it, I try it. It just never sticks. Is that the guy, the really interesting dude who had like the panic attack on CNN, and he started going into the so I'm fascinated by him anyway. I'll totally try this.
Yeah, it was really great. And like I said, it was like the perfect getting to know it. I haven't used it in years and years, but it was a really good intro to meditation just because of that. It's like the shame spiral you were talking about. The moment that we're beating ourselves up, it's like we're doing the opposite of creating a habit around this. We're never gonna want to come back again. I like to leave people with something that will be helpful for those with ADHD, even if it's just something to think about. What would that be? You're
not alone. You are not broken. There are millions of people just like you. You live in a world that was not designed for you, but we're working on it.
That's beautiful. For listeners that are resonating and want to find more about you guys and your book, ADHD is Awesome, where's the best place to connect?
We're on Instagram, the Holderness Family. And we're at theholdernessfamily.com. We have a newsletter and stuff like that. You can find out about the book.
All the links for this episode will be at mindlove.com/359. Your challenge for this week is just to remember you're not alone. And sometimes it feels like this world was not designed for you. I like to take that a little bit further and say that it's on purpose. There are some amazing benefits of capitalism and a lot of downsides. And some of those downsides mean that the way things work naturally and the structures that are put in place are to profit an elite individual group. And that is why our education system is the way that it is. I don't know if it's exactly why all work environments are the way they are, but it is to profit the companies. And so that is why I am always shouting from the rooftops that if something doesn't fit, find a way to create your life so that you find more joy. You don't have to stay in the same situation that you're in. And that doesn't always mean to quit your job. I know that there is privilege and lack thereof, and I will only ever fully understand my own life experience. But I do know that regardless of the container or the situation that you're living in, there are things that you can do to allow yourself more time to do things that you love, to see things in a different way. And sometimes it's that simple. One perspective shift can completely change your experience of something. I have been thinking a lot about this idea. I've been talking about it on social. If you're not following me on Instagram, hit me up at mindlovemelissa. But here's what I'm going to leave you with, because so often it's really easy to get down on the self-development movement. And sometimes the language that we use isn't something that can be understood before you're in it. And so it's easy to look at things as though they're toxic, or that it's the worst way to be, or that you're bypassing something. And sometimes it is. Sometimes that's absolutely true. But here's the thing. When we talk about a shift in perspective and to see yourself as not a victim or to forgive people that have wronged you deeply, no one is saying, or I shouldn't say no one, but I am never saying that that is the only way to look at it, or that's how you have to look at it. All I'm saying is that there are perspectives available that often make the same situation easier. And when you actually explore those ideas and see what it really means, such as forgiveness is not about the other person, you're not giving somebody a pass, you're letting go of the pain that you're holding on to, or of the anger, or you're seeing it in a different way. And usually not even letting go completely, but you know that that perspective is available to you. And so just like with all of the things that we talk about, sometimes it feels triggering. I even get triggered by things at times, but I know that no one's ever saying this is absolute truth. They're saying this is a truth that I've found that's helpful to me. And so just keep that in mind whenever anyone is sharing anything, because sometimes things feel abrasive. It rubs you the wrong way. Sometimes things land just right. And that's how it is for everyone. And sometimes the things that land or don't will do the opposite depending on what state of mind we're in or what place we are in our lives. So just keep that in mind. There's a lot of amazing things coming up. Make sure you are on my email list. Make sure you're getting the Morning Mind Love, because I have like 8 exciting things coming up. One of those is the Mind Love Retreat, but I also have a lot of free resources that I'm going to be giving out. So make sure you sign up for that at mindlove.com. You can also text the word morning to 33777. You can find all of my amazing sponsors at mindlove.com/sponsors. And that's all for today. So thanks for giving your mind a little love today, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning into Your Higher Frequency with Mind Love. Head to mindlove.com for a free gift to keep your vibes up until next week.